This year, accusations flew back and forth about political voting at Eurovision. Supporters of Israel's entry felt the juries underrated the act. Meanwhile, there's a whole segment of Eurovision fans who wish we could stop talking about politics entirely and just enjoy the music.
But accusations of political voting are as old as the nearly 70-year-old contest itself. A history we're going to explore in a game we're calling Tops and Bottoms, Just Enjoy the Music edition. To help us out, we are talking to journalist and podcaster extraordinaire, Leon Neyfakh. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Leon launched Slate's hit podcast, Slow Burn. He then launched Fiasco, a podcast that has covered Bush v. Gore, Iran-Contra, and the AIDS epidemic, among others.
We like to start out these segments asking, what do you know about Eurovision going into this?
Nothing. I frankly didn't know it was a contest at all. Like, if you had said the name to me, I might have guessed that it was a cable company.
Technically, Eurovision is the name of the broadcast network, and then they created the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yeah, so you, at your core, knew. You heard Eurovision, you heard technical broadcasting.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't make sense because you're telling me it's a singing contest, yes?
Yeah. God, you already know everything you need to know, Leon.
But why Vision then? You know, that's the thing, it's the red herring.
A lot of small countries in Europe needed to kind of collaborate to be able to compete with American television and all that you couldn't quite fund with a population of a couple million. So all of these broadcasters joined together in a union of broadcasters.
Mm-hmm. Which is just like a much less exciting story than the now self-conception of it, which is it was created alongside like the UN and the EC as a post-war institution. But it does seem like the people who have now gone back into the history and are very unfun are now pushing back on that self-conception.
The fact that it's been around for 70 years also quite shocking. Like, I think what's the American version of it?
Yeah, I mean, and the big difference between most of these other competitions and Eurovision is that all the songs have to be original.
Okay.
On theme with this game, the other big difference is, right, like every entrant represents a country.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Olympics of songwriting.
Even the Olympics, which gets fairly political, it goes to the next level when you have lyrics. You know, why do we fall in love with the artists that we do?
Yep.
It's because of their perspective on the world. And suddenly their perspective on the world is interacting with the national story.
Yeah.
There's generally less lyrics in swimming.
I would have been a better swimmer had the balance been slightly different. So getting to our game, we're going to play you a song and you're going to guess whether it placed in the top half of the contest or if it placed at the bottom or didn't even qualify for the finals. Then we'll talk about the gap between your expected result and how the song actually did in the context of the time. Part of the idea here is to come up with some insights about whether Eurovision voting is mired in politics or whether it's quote unquote just about the music or whether that distinction is useful at all.
When you say the voting, is that a popular vote?
It's a much more complicated question.
It's an electoral college kind of situation?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean,
every country in Eurovision has a jury.
The important part of that is that every country that participates has equal say in who wins. So that means Iceland has the same amount of votes as Germany, even though they, of course, have a huge difference in size of population.
Yep.
Since the late 90s, there's been a televote aspect.
And there became this idea of political block voting, that if you left too much to the people, all of these Eastern European countries, while they couldn't vote for themselves, they would vote for each other out of political affinity. Also, the languages are similar.
You can give a jury voting criteria. You can't give general population voting criteria.
The other side of that debate is that there have been several jury bribery scandals over the years.
Okay.
So there's a way in which the popular vote, even if they're not following a rubric, at least it's very hard to bribe an entire population.
So first up, we've got Maria Serafovic with Molitva representing Serbia in 2007.
So I'm watching a group of women in suits, including the lead singer, out front with a short haircut, black rimmed glasses. It's very dramatic, melodramatic. Does not sound like any American pop music, that's for sure. It sounds like a war cry.
Which you hear often from Serbia, you know?
I can't tell if these women are all singing or they're just there for moral support. I'm going to say bottom half. I can't imagine anyone likes that.
Now, this is where we're going to start with a shocker, because this won the contest.
Wow. On what basis? So what do people like about it?
I think the idea of this queer-coded woman from Serbia standing on stage and singing this like love song, I think was seen at the time as pretty revolutionary.
Terry Wogan, who was the longtime commentator in the UK, he blamed the victory on bloc voting. And he said there's a definite Baltic bloc and a Balkan bloc, and they've been joined in recent years by a Russian bloc. We won the Cold War, but we lost Eurovision. So from where Terry Wogan's concerned, definitely felt it was political.
There's another potential explanation for the fact that the UK, which had been so dominant in the 90s, suddenly stopped doing well.
For many years, Eurovision had a language rule, and it said that each participating country had to submit a song in one of their official languages.
Okay.
During those years, the English-speaking countries did pretty well.
Because most of the Eurovision audience, even if English is not their first language, they speak English.
Right.
And so then you had all of these smaller countries who had to submit their songs in a language that most of the audience wasn't going to understand.
Got it.
So the UK had this period of dominance, and then the language rule changed in 99.
Yeah.
And then the UK got very upset when Eastern Europeans started winning. But with that, I think we can move to our second song. This is the UK 1 year later. This is their entry from 2008, Andy Abraham's Even If.
I'm not playing, girl. This ain't no game at all. And for the first time, I'm not looking for love.
Okay, I am looking at a very dapper black man wearing a blue suit with a sequined hem. That very funky song. This is more recognizable to me as pop music. But it does seem like very out of time. In a good way. I like this a lot. So I guess the question is like, is this what was popular in the UK in 2008? It reminds me of Bruno Mars a little bit in like pretty superficial way, to be honest. It's like wedding music. But I like it. I would be shocked if this didn't come in the top half.
So we're coming to Heartbreak number 2.
Okay.
This placed last.
What?
In the entire content. Yeah.
Yeah.
This really gets to what is political and what is cultural, right? I don't really buy the argument that people are just looking at this and voting for the flag that they like entirely.
Yeah.
But there is something about watching a song like Molitva and being like, this doesn't really relate to a lot of music I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Whereas like, yeah, this song, honestly, I'm not like a huge fan of by any means. But I watch it and I go, oh yeah, I get that.
Now we're so used to the fact that you can, in 1 second, pull up a playlist on Spotify of top 10 songs in Serbia right now. But I think that Eurovision was kind of like the main way that you would share culture both ways.
Right. So to go back to Terry Wogan,
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod. Terry Wogan. He was very upset when Molitva won. But when this song placed last, he retired. He washed his hands of Eurovision.
Wow.
And he said, Andy Abraham gave, I think, the performance of his life with a song that certainly deserved far more points than it got.
And what was his theory as to why?
The continent hates the UK. And this is a sentiment that has only increased post-Brexit.
When you give more people opportunity, people who've always had the opportunity feel like something's taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Eurovision, up until the fall of the Iron Curtain, was mainly a competition entirely for the West. And I think that once you then start to include new people at the party and then they become the life of the party, it hurts people sometimes.
Yeah. I prefer parties where I'm the only one there. So as much as Terry Wogan retired because he felt like Eurovision had let the UK down, there is a real argument that him being on television and just constantly trashing the contest for decades contributed to this idea within the UK that like it's kind of a ridiculous camp fest that's for the Eastern Europeans. And therefore, the UK stopped sending artists who were relevant to them at all.
Wait, I was going to ask, so these people, they could be famous already? Like,
yeah,
yes.
Oh, totally.
Oh, wow. I just assumed it was like amateurs.
So it's a competition where you put super established artists and brand new artists right next to each other. A lot of these people are the Adeles of their country.
Right.
But as soon as they go past those borders, it doesn't matter. The UK has already had a pathway to worldwide
Music
charts and
domination,
music domination. For a lot of these other countries, Eurovision is the pipeline. We would not know ABBA if it wasn't for the fact that they won Eurovision.
Right.
So then moving to Azerbaijan, who in 2023 sent Tural Turan X with their song, Tell Me More.
Tell me more about me. You are. Tell me you love me, baby, more than I try.
He looks like it could be on a CW show. Or they do, I guess.
Either one of
I can't tell if I've only seen one or both now.
this.
Oh, yeah. Here's the other one.
They'd play out.
Oh, he's a rapper. The other one's a rapper. This is like a Linkin Park type partnership. Do I like this?
Yeah.
It sounds to me a little bit like 90s alternative rock. Like Sixpence None the Richer went viral recently, and I feel like this fits into that. I guess the rapping was pretty contemporary. Though it also
Contemporary with a
is
hesitation.
pretty retro in a way, too.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to imagine what other people in Europe would have thought of this, right? I feel like it comes in a variety of flavors that are not legible to me. Partly what I'm trying to decipher is like, does this guy look cool to like, I can't tell if he looks cool to me because it's obvious that he's like existing in a totally different universe. I think the song's catchy and they look nice, so I'm going to say top.
This did not even make the Eurovision final.
They blame their elimination on the fact that success at Eurovision requires writing a song about LGBT issues or politics.
Wow.
Which is, I think...
Cancel culture warriors?
Yeah, exactly. No, they really...
That's their next album.
In addition to saying that they lost because it was not a pro-gay song, the twins also said that their vocal mentor, as they like to refer to him, he forbade them to engage in self-gratification and sexual intercourse 2 weeks before the competition, which was a rule that they both broke, which in their opinion is why they lost.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then their singing mentor said, Daddy's not pleased. But it's also interesting because it's like the top two songs of last year. There's nothing political about it.
Yeah, neither of those songs had any
So
sort
it's
of
just
LGBT
interesting.
kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess Loreen is bisexual.
Or tattoos. Or is that a lesbian
It's
thing?
long nails.
Oh.
No, that's very not... Never mind.
Okay. Gulp. So moving on to our next song. This song is called Running Scared by Ella and Nikki. And this represented Azerbaijan in 2011.
I'm seeing, I believe, 3 women standing very close together and swinging their arms like a multi-armed goddess, Shiva? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there's so many women. Oh, and now they're all gone. I would say high production values. They have a lot of big lights flashing behind them. Maybe I feel like I didn't say anything because I was sort of speechless.
That is also okay.
Eurovision will do that too.
Yeah.
I don't know if people would like this. I guess I will say the song did not do well because I don't think these two make sense together, chemistry-wise.
I do agree with you on that. The song did win the contest.
Okay.
And a lot of the talk about political voting was that the act got 12 points from Turkey and Russia. So you had a real affinity between Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Russia. Of course, Armenia gave the song 0 points.
The way this has gone so far is like everything that strikes me as like this should be popular or successful has been wrong.
Yes.
Like pretty badly wrong. Is that, I assume that's...
Welcome to Eurovision.
That is commonly, I will say that is 100% my experience. Norway's a perfect example where the song this year, it was a metal song, but it had folk elements to it. And so for me coming to it, it took me a little bit to even understand what was going on. And then like, because I had such a lovely guide, I really, came to fall in love with the song and with the artists because I started to understand what it was they were referencing and what they were in dialogue with.
There's a real sense with Eurovision that it's always been a cultural exchange. You hear languages that you don't normally hear, that you get to see performances that are so far away from what you would normally see. 2 years straight, I had Italian rap as one of my top 5 categories on my listening on Spotify.
That's crazy.
And if it wasn't for Eurovision, it wouldn't even have been in the top 50. You know?
I wouldn't go that far. I look at you and I think Italian rap.
Yeah. I get that a lot. The interesting thing about this song, too, is that I feel like this is one of the winners that have fallen a little bit more into sort of obscurity.
Azerbaijan fits kind of strangely these days into the Eurovision coalition in that with Russia out, with Belarus out, it's one of the few sort of openly authoritarian-ish governments to still be there. It's hard, I think, for Eurovision to hold this up because of the backdrop of the government, which actually oddly is becoming a thing for Maria Sarafovic as well, the lesbian Serbian artist that we started off with, because she is openly in support of Vucic's government. So,
Take all kinds.
Yeah, gay people can be fascist too.
Yeah. And that's equality.
That's equality.
Yeah. I do just like as a term, like lesbian authoritarianism.
That's my kink.
But anyway, moving to Ukraine in 2004, this is the Ruslana with Wild Dances.
Sounds like Marilyn Manson. The beautiful people. Not anymore. This is what I imagine some prog rock sounds like, but that's probably wrong. I take that back. I don't think this is what prog rock sounds like. They're dressed as like Xena the Warrior Princess kind of
100%.
figures. It's some traditional wind instruments. You could hear this in the beginning of a basketball game. It sort of sounds like
totally,
intro.
yeah.
I was going to say it sounds like traditional, like Ukrainian or Russian folk music, but not all of it.
Yeah.
Eurovision kind of does this thing where you go, let me add something unfamiliar into something familiar.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
that
getting
kind
that.
of way of like being like, here's something a little bit Ukrainian, but let me package it in a way that's, accessible to you.
I'm going to say that did well.
It won the contest.
Okay.
This was another song that was criticized for being supported mostly or like heavily
Political
by
reasons.
the other Eastern Bloc countries.
Yeah, okay. That's all we're really talking about is that like, people just vote for their own kind.
That
It's not
is
like a political message to support.
this is where part of the debate really comes down to. Is this political in terms of like what we're doing is we're looking at this country's policies or government or what we think about this country and going, oh, that's why we're voting for them? Or is it just like, if you are another Eastern European country, you're more likely to get the references in a Ukrainian song?
I think there's also sometimes a simpler explanation than political voting. There's a joke in Eurovision that you don't want to be the number where people go and get snacks because it doesn't have commercial breaks.
Right.
So people have to kind of pick the number where they're going to go to the bathroom. And Norwegians are always going to pay attention to what Sweden sent. Because we're neighboring countries. Then whether you liked it or hated it, that sits fresh in memory. But there's going to be other numbers where you go, hold on a second. Was that Luxembourg or Lithuania?
Right.
I don't remember because it's not countries you think about as often.
So this is another song from the UK, 1982. The group is called Bardo, and the song is called One Step Further.
One step further and I would have been there. Can't seem to get your attention no matter how I try.
Very mod, I guess. Are these mods? I guess he's dressed like Marty from Back to the Future, which is basically right. 82. Ooh, I love this song. This is a hit. Ooh, yeah, this is amazing. Look at them shimmying with their backs to each other. This is like, what's that band with Zooey Deschanel? She and him? I guess what I'm saying is she reminds me of Zooey Deschanel.
God, Sally Ann Triplet, the Zooey Deschanel of her time.
That's a classic pop song.
Yeah.
That's instantly appealing. And I bet you're going to tell me that it lost.
No, it placed number 7.
Okay.
So it did very, very well in the contest. And yet, I think there was a feeling that it would have placed higher had the political situation been different.
It wasn't cis-het coded.
Here's the thing. It was at the top of the charts when it debuted.
It was a favorite.
It was a favorite to win. And then the Falklands War happened.
Okay.
And the song that ended up winning was called A Little Piece. So
You weren't going to read the German?
Oh, would you like to?
Ein bisschen Frieden?
Wow. Oh my God.
I just love to see you skip right past the German title.
Not going to do it. But that was really impressive. Can you say more things in German to me?
You're like part of my Jewish heritage is to never say things in German.
I've learned not to piss off the Germans. But we talked to Zooey Deschanel,
Also known as Sally Ann Triplet.
Sally Ann Triplet, who very much attributes where that song plays to the Falklands War.
Okay.
And she might be right about this, but I will say this also does connect to a thing that I often feel with the Brits, which is that, like, he did pretty well.
Yeah,
Seventh is good.
Yeah.
You know, this is why people get annoyed.
And also,
at you.
generally, if you look at the history of the contest, they're up there among countries that have won more
Right.
times than a lot.
And I think there also is another explanation for the gap between the song on the charts and where the song plays. If you listen to the track that charted, it's a much more synth-heavy track. It feels much more like 1982 rather than maybe a decade earlier.
Right.
And it's because they reorchestrated it for horns and drums and all of that stuff. I think politics is like the easiest thing to grab onto.
It's an excuse, right?
It's an excuse. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, Leon, having come into this Eurovision game, knowing potentially that it might be a song contest,
Yep.
what are your impressions leaving?
It sounds a little bit like the Oscars to me. It seems like there's a lot of speculation throughout the contest as to who's doing what behind the scenes, how the contest is structured, what incentives are in place to like warp the results such that the best movie or the best singer or the best song doesn't win. It sounds like a lot of like societal tensions get expressed through the contest. And it's sort of interesting that the music itself feels quite disconnected from what I would recognize as like certainly American pop
Contemporary pop. I have to say, with just a brief introduction, you are now a Eurovision expert.
Yeah, I mean,
all of
look at the
Thank
learning
you.
curve from wrongs to two rights in a row.
There you go.
Oh, true.
I can be proud of that record.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like my college counselor tried to assure me that it's not about your grade point average. It's the improvement that happened over the years.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
so
That's
sweet.
right.
Yeah, he was
That holds
completely
here.
wrong about that. Leon, thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
Yeah,
much for
That was
joining
really
us.
fun. And I feel like I learned a lot.
All the mysteries of the Euroverse.